Chapter 2. The magic had hit while I was packing the essentials into my bag, and I had to take Carmelian instead of my regular car. A beat-up, rusted truck, bile green in color and missing the left headlight assembly, Carmelian had only one advantage. It ran on water infused with magic and could be driven during a magic wave. Unlike normal cars, the truck did not rumble or murmur or produce any sound one would expect an engine to make. Instead, it growled, whined, snarled, and emitted deafening peals of thunder with depressing regularity. Who named it Carmelian, and why, I had no idea. I bought it at a junkyard with the name scrawled on the windshield. Luckily for me, on a regular day Carmelian had to travel only 30 miles to Savannah. Today, I forced it into the ley line, which in itself wasn't bad for it, since the ley line dragged it almost all the way to Atlanta, but the trek across the city didn't do it much good. Now the truck was cooling off in the parking lot behind me, dripping water and sweating magic. It would take me a good 15 minutes to warm the generator back up, but that was alright. I planned to be here a while. I hated Atlanta. I hated cities, period. I stood on the sidewalk and surveyed the small shabby office building that supposedly contained the Atlanta chapter of the Order of Knights of Merciful Aid. The order made efforts to conceal its true size and power, but in this case they'd gone overboard. The building, a concrete box 3 stories high, stuck out like a sore thumb among the stately brick houses flanking it on both sides. The walls sported orange rust stains made by rainwater dripping from the metal roof through the holes in the gutters. Thick metal grates secured small windows, blocked by pale Venetian blinds behind dusty glass. There had to be another facility in the city, a place where the support staff worked while the field agents put on a nice, modest front for the public. It would have been a large state-of-the-art armory and a computer network, and a database of files on anyone of power, magic or mundane. Somewhere in that database my name sat in its own little niche, the name of a reject, undisciplined and worthless, just the way I liked it. I touched the wall. About a quarter of an inch away from the concrete my finger encountered elastic resistance, as if it was trying to squeeze a tennis ball. A faint shimmer of silver pulsed from my skin and I withdrew my hand. The building was heavily warded against hostile magic. If someone with a lot of juice was to hurl a fireball at it, it would probably bounce off without so much as scorching the gray walls. I opened one half of the metal double doors and walked inside. A narrow passage stretched up to the right of me, terminating at a door boasting a large red on white sign. Authorized personnel only. My other option was a flight of stairs leading upwards. I took the stairs, noting they were surprisingly clean. Nobody tried to stop me. Nobody asked me why I was there. Look at us. We are helpful and non-threatening. We live to serve the community, and we even let anyone walk into our office. The need for an unassuming building I could understand, but public records claim that the entire chapter consisted of 9 knights, a protector, a diviner, a quester, 3 defenders, and 3 guardians. 9 people, overseeing a city the size of Atlanta. Yeah. The stairs ended on a landing, with a single metal door painted dull green. A small dagger gleamed weakly on its surface about my eye level. Knocking didn't seem like a good idea, so I swung the door open and let myself in. A long hallway stretched before me, offering a variety of color to my tired eyes, gray and yet more gray. The ultra-short carpet boasted plain gray pile. The walls were painted in 2 shades of gray, lighter on top and a darker gray runner at the bottom. The small warts of electric lights on the ceiling looked gray too. No doubt the decorator chose a particularly dull smoky glass out of aesthetic considerations. The place looked spotless. Several doors branched from the hallway, probably leading into the individual offices. At the very end, a large wooden door supported a kite shield enameled in black. In the middle of the shield reared a steel lion, polished to a bright gleam. The Night Protector, just the fellow I needed to see. I marched through the hallway, aiming for the shield and glancing into the doorways as I passed them. On my left I saw a small armory. A short, well-muscled man sat on a wooden bench polishing a DHA, or a DA, which I have no idea what kind of weapon that is, but that's okay. The wide blade of the short Vietnamese sword shimmered slightly as he drew an oiled cloth against its bluish metal. On the right lay a small but immaculate office. A large black man, dressed in an expensive suit, sat behind the desk, talking on the phone. He saw me, smiled with automatic courtesy, and kept talking. In his place, I wouldn't have given myself a second glance either. I wore my work clothes, jeans loose enough to let me kick a man taller than me in the throat, a green shirt, and comfortable running shoes. Slayer rested in its sheath on my back, partially hidden by my jacket. The saber's hilt protruded above my right shoulder, obscured by my hair, gathered into a thick plait. The braid was cumbersome. It slapped my back when I ran and made for an excellent hold in the fight. If I were a little less vain, I would have cut it off, but I've already sacrificed feminine clothes, makeup, and pretty underwear in the name of functionality. I would be damned if I gave up my hair too. I reached the protector's door and raised my hand to knock. Just a moment, dear, said the stern female voice I'd heard through the phone yesterday. I glanced in the direction and saw a small office cluttered with file cabinets. A large desk sat in the middle of the floor, and on the top of the desk stood a middle-aged woman. The woman was tall, prim, and very thin, with a halo of curly hair dyed platinum gray. She wore a stylish blue pantsuit. A matching pair of shoes rested near the leg of the chair she must have used to get on the table. He's with someone, dear, the woman said. She raised her hands and proceeded to change the twisted bulb in a fey lantern affixed to the ceiling next to an electric light. You don't have an appointment, do you? No, ma'am. Well, you're in luck. He's free for the morning. Why don't you give me your name and the reason for your visit, and we'll see what we can do. I waited until she finished with the fey bulb, told her that I was here in connection with Greg Feldman, and gave her my card. She took it down, showing no reaction at all, and pointed behind me. There's a waiting area over there, dear. I turned and walked into the waiting area, which turned out to be just another office equipped with a black leather sofa and two chairs. A table stood against the wall by the door with a coffee pot, guarded by two stacks of small clay cups. A large jar of sugar cubes stood next to the cups, and next to the jar sat two boxes from Dunkin's Donuts. My hand twitched to the donuts, but I restrained myself. Anyone who had the pleasure of trying one of the old Scott's donuts quickly learned you couldn't eat just one, and waltzing into the protector's office covered in hand-whipped chocolate cream wasn't a good way to make the right impression. I found a safe spot by the window, away from the donuts, and glanced past the bars to the outside. At the small stretch of the overcast sky, framed by roofs, the Order of Merciful Aid offered just what its name suggested. Merciful aid to anyone who asked. If you could pay, they would charge you, and if you couldn't, they would kill shit on your behalf pro bono. Officially, their mission statement was to protect humanity against all harm, by magic or by weapon. Trouble was, their definition of harm seemed rather flexible, and sometimes merciful aid meant they lopped your head off. The Order got away with a lot. Its membership was too powerful to be ignored, and the temptation to rely on it was too great. It had been endorsed by the government as the third part of the law enforcement triumvirate. The Paranormal Activity Police Division, the Military Supernatural Defense Units, and the Order of Knights of Merciful Aid were all supposed to play nice together and keep the general public safe. In reality, it didn't exactly happen that way. The Knights of the Order were helpful, competent, and lethal. Unlike the mercenaries of the Guild, they were not motivated by money, and they stood by their promises. But, unlike the mercs, they also made judgments, and they believed that they always knew best. A tall man stepped into the waiting room. The stench hit me almost before I saw him, a sickening, sweet, lingering odor of rotting garbage. The man wore a sweeping brown trench coat, stained with ink and grease spots and smeared with so many varieties of foodstuff and plain trash that he looked like young Joseph in his coat of many colors. The coat hung open in the front to allow a glimpse of an abomination of a shirt, blue and red with green tartan stripes. His filthy khaki pants were held up by orange suspenders. He wore old steel-toed paratrooper boots and leather gloves with their fingers cut off at the first knuckle. On his head sat a felt hat, an old-fashioned fedora, soiled and stained beyond belief. Thick mousy hair dripped in limp strands from under the hat. He saw me and tipped his hat, holding its rim between his index and middle finger the way some people hold cigarettes, and I got a glimpse of his face, hard lines, 3-day stubble, and pale eyes, quick and cold. There was nothing especially threatening in the way he looked at me, but something behind those eyes made me want to raise my hands in the air and back away slowly, until it was safe to run for my life. "Ma'am," he drawled. He scared the shit out of me. I smiled at him. "Good morning." My greeting sounded a lot like, "Nice doggy." I'd have to squeeze past him to get to the door. The receptionist came to my rescue. "You can go in now, dear," she called. The man stepped aside, bowing slightly, and I walked by him. The side of my jacket brushed against his trench coat, probably picking up enough bacteria to knock out a small army. but I did not pull away. "Nice to meet you," he murmured as I passed him. "Nice to meet you too," I said, and escaped into the protector's office. I found myself in a large room, at least twice the size of the offices I had seen so far. Heavy burgundy draperies covered the windows, letting in just enough light to create a comfortable gloom. A massive desk of polished cherry wood dominated the room, supported a cardboard box, a heavy mesquite wood paperweight with a Texas Ranger badge on top, and a pair of brown cowboy boots. The legs in the boots belonged to a thick-shouldered man, who leaned back in an oversized black leather chair, listening to the phone at his ear. The Night Protector.